Let's talk a little bit about business. As I mentioned earlier, at least looking from the outside in, you're doing very well relative to other e-commerce platforms that have been open in Kenya.
Yeah.
So we're talking about...
So. Yeah. No, I wish everybody the best, by the way, but yeah, we're doing well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jumia was one of the African e-commerce platform that went public in the United States. They were called the Amazon of Africa from the IPO. Right now, their stock price is very low. Look at Sky Garden, you look at Trigger Foods, all those kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that have been happening in the e-commerce space. Mm-hmm. So from where you're sitting, what do you think you are doing right that other e-commerce platforms are not getting right?
So there's a lot to be said about that. Let's first all start that if you look at the total timeline of business, e-commerce is pretty new, right? Yeah. And especially e-commerce in Africa. And especially the models are pretty difficult. And I'm sure of all the companies you mentioned, there are a lot of people that have worked and are working extremely hard to build something cool and new and exciting, right? Yeah. So the typical problem what you see with e-commerce is how can you balance your unit economics, right? When I evaluate a business, there are 5 things that I look at. And that's 1, are you solving a real problem? 2, the revenue model. Can you make money with that? 3, can you make profit? 4, can you scale it? And 5, do you have a model that nobody can copy, right? So that is how I look at it. So if you look at many of the platforms that are supplying Dukas, yes, there is definitely a problem, right? Because people need those products. Yeah. You can make sales with it, but 3, can you make profit with it? And 4, is it scalable? And 5, do you have such a strong moat? They call it in venture capital terms. So you have such a strong moat that nobody can enter that market. I'm 100% sure that when the first time that you saw Uber, you thought like, this is genius, right? It's a taxi, completely offline world. Yeah. Everybody has been ripped off by taxis before. We have a platform that's going to do it. This must be it, right? Yeah. So there they had a very, very good model, right? Big problem, it's possible to make revenue, possible to make profit, very scalable. But then the 5th one was, are there other people that can come into the market? And I think you can see now still in the market, there's always new taxi companies coming in, right? The reason that Uber is doing so extremely well at this moment is because they have tried to work on that moat, right? To make a superior customer experience that just brings in more revenue and brings in more taxi drivers. Yeah. People just find the experience better. And I think that in the e-commerce companies that we have seen, most of them have started bottom up, right? Yeah. So if you look at the Kenyan population, we estimate that our market for Greenspoon is maybe a couple of 100,000 people. So that's not a lot.
5 million, yeah.
Yeah, it depends. If you pitch to a venture capital firm, is it better to focus on the couple of 100,000 people that control 80% of the consumer spend, right? Yeah. Not of the total money, but of that 80% of the consumer spend. Yeah. Or do you focus on the other 50 million, right? And when you focus on the other 50 million, you end up with very low average order values because there is an infrastructure already. Yeah. Dukas have been supplied over the past 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, right? Yeah. There is an infrastructure already. And can you deliver so much value to those Dukas that they will choose you? And why do people buy from you? That is always a very good question to ask, right? Yeah. Because it's always better that when people buy from you because you offer insane convenience or insane quality. If the reason is only price, then it becomes very, very, very difficult because you end up in a market where there's very little margin over the value chain, where working capital is broken in so many ways, right? Yeah, people are buying 1 cigarette at a time, or people are buying 1 piece of chewing gum at a time, right? So order values are being cut everywhere over the supply chain, and a Duka manages their cash flow by the hour, right? Yep. If they've sold something, maybe they will get some new stock. But if they haven't sold something, it's very difficult to combine that with a logistics model that needs to depend on huge drop sizes in order to be profitable. What we have been doing, we are in a very dense area. Yeah. Our customers, we have started at the wealthiest customers of Kenya, and that gives us good basket size, right? Yeah. If you shop for a whole week, that
covers for the
and it can be everything, right? Fruit and vegetables, pantry, meat, wine, spirits, everything. So those baskets are very sizable. So the profitability for 1 drop for us is much better than for some of the other platforms.
Yeah, okay, I think that makes sense, especially from a specificity point of view. I mean, when you look at platforms like Amazon, when they started, it was just a bookstore, right?
Yeah.
So they are
0 to 1. Yeah. If you look at, I don't know if you've read the book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel.
Not yet.
Yeah, that's definitely one which everybody should read if you go into a business. Okay. What Peter Thiel says, it's very simple. Start with a small market where you can actually win, and small markets are typically ignored by big players. So you can figure it out, you can build your business there. and then expand from there, right? And the parallels with Greenspoon are so clear because online it's very much ignored by the big retailers, right?
Yeah.
Naiva still doesn't have a good online platform. Chenorana and Quickmart don't have a good online platform, right? Carrefour works together with a lot of third-party suppliers, right? In terms of the delivery or even the ordering.
Yeah.
And that is just, they have underestimated how big that market potentially is.
Yeah.
And that market will get big.
Yeah, I think also that makes sense. The other thing, apart from focusing on the niche, is focusing on the high end of the market. Because if you look at innovation, especially tech innovations,
Yes.
for example, when cars came out first,
Yeah.
very rich people could afford it, right? And then as time goes on, everybody can now seem to afford it. Laptops, phones, all those kind of things.
Absolutely.
So you can...
Mercedes always tests the newest technology in the S-Class, right?
Yeah.
Because a low number of units, high R&D, high production costs per unit, so it's expensive. So you would only put it in the most expensive vehicles.
Vehicles, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that kind of makes
But
sense.
like Greenspoon will not be a niche player for long.